You had a boy, Simon, you were the first who was asked by the Rebbe to be one of the reviewers to do that. How old were you when he asked you to do
I wouldn't.
that?
Let me just correct. It's nice to say I was asked, but I wasn't asked.
Oh, yeah. You begged.
No one asked me. Can you imagine? They just
that's exactly.
No. I'm saying it for a reason,
Yeah.
not because just to correct the record. Because the Rebbe's approach was generally you have to draft yourself. He didn't. So I, as a teenager, was very intrigued by the process, and I got involved. And once I got involved, yes, I clearly had the Rebbe's endorsement
What
and
do you
blessings.
mean the process? Can you just open
Okay,
my
yeah.
eyes
So
to that?
so as I became more, as I started discovering what I like to call the music of Judaism, the soul of Judaism through Hasidus, and that's what really aroused my passion
As a teenager.
Yeah, not just I was not looking to be a mechanical Jew.
Yeah.
I don't know if I ever would have been. I was looking for a passionate Judaism, a soulful Judaism. So when I started getting inspired, one of the things, of course, I looked to the Rebbe because he's like the leader. So I want access to the top, a mind like that, a soul like that. And as I became to identify more, as a child, the Rebbe was the king on the hill. I always respected him, but I had no connection on a personal
But you
level.
got to see him in ways that the current...
Yeah, no, absolutely. I saw him all the time. But you know what? You could take these things for granted too. I didn't appreciate him. That seeing him doesn't mean you appreciate it, The Jews saw the Beis HaMikdash and things happened. But as I got to appreciate more, and I saw that he's a true revolutionary, that he wants to pioneer a spiritual revolution in these difficult times spiritually. And the more success we had materially and technologically, the more the spirituality was being compromised. I felt I want to be part of this army. So I enlisted myself.
How do you enlist yourself? What do? You just get up one day and start reviewing what the Rebbe said?
No. In my case, I began learning a lot, began reading a lot about this. And, I tried to access the best, the teachers that I felt I respected, that really knew their things. It's like you hang around, like if you want to become a lawyer, you hang around with good lawyers.
Yeah.
I hang around with the best. I hang around with good minds. And then I was very intrigued by the process that the Rebbe would speak on Shabbos and Yom Tov. No notes and no recordings. So it all had to be memorized.
Yeah.
I just was completely mesmerized by that prospect. So I started doing it. I started hanging around. Every after Shabbos, they would get together, a small group, to review. So I used to hang around there. And I would weigh in. I'd give my few thoughts. And I became good at it. And I excelled. And everyone recognized that. So as you excel, you climb the ranks. So everyone came that way. Nobody was handpicked.
Like drafted or
Nobody was
handpicked.
handpicked.
So I'm curious.
It's like a good student rises.
So
as I did that, so as I did that, of course, the Rebbe then was involved because I also became the main writer of the Farbrengen. But it was a consensus. Everyone saw that I was good at it. So the Rebbe's endorsement was by editing what I wrote. He actually edited.
He spent his time on your
editing
words.
and answering my questions, and I got more and more involved. And I literally communicated with the Rebbe maybe 10 times a day at times.
Really?
Not in speaking, in writing. Everything was professional in writing. So I have thousands of pages.
It wasn't on the phone. It was...
No. It was in writing. Remember, writing, it was all edited works.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very professional. So I have thousands of pages of the Rebbe's handwritten answers to me personally, to questions and queries, as well as edits on the Rebbe's talks.
I'm always fascinated by how the Rebbe edited. You see,
like a surgeon with a scalpel, the precision. And that changed everything for me because firstly I had this direct access, and I was literally speaking to the top. This is can't get higher than that. So this for me, if you're talking about education wise, this to me turned me into a very proactive and very driven and everything I am today was a result of that being shaped.
So I'm curious, as a parent, this may seem very strange. This is a quintessentially non-Chabad question. As a parent, when you see your child rising the ranks in the Rebbe, is there any part of you that gets possessive, that gets like, am I losing my kid? Like nowadays, if you had a kid, again, I preface this with a quintessentially non-Chabad
Excellent question. Don't
But,
apologize.
very good
but nowadays, if my child came home and he said, my Rebbe's unbelievable, he's a revolutionary, he knows everything, and let's say he really did know everything, and I'm corresponding with him 10 times a day in writing, and he's everything, and he gave me my sense of self and my self-esteem, and hear my kid talk about this, I'd be sitting there as a parent, and I'd be like,
Where am I?
yeah, what's going on here? So I'm curious, what is the role, a Chabad parent, especially when you have a superstar child, how do you react? What did you feel? How do you make sure that he doesn't float off? I'm sure there were people who are very precocious, very bright, they go in too deep. Like you need to sometimes pull people out of the Holy of Holies, to spend all your day, especially as a teenager, hanging out with the Lubavitcher Rebbe, one of the... So what are you thinking as a parent?
So I want to tell you what was happening.
Yeah.
When he would finish with over there, he would come home, and we would be talking only about what he did and what the Rebbe said and what the Rebbe corrected and what the Rebbe gave a different kind of explanations for what he was doing. We were so involved and we were so excited that we're actually getting it from somebody who got it from the Rebbe. To our home was a hub, I don't know if I would say, for people to come and discuss the Rebbe's Verbrengens. So we were so involved that it was just like being in heaven.
But let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Do you think, especially your husband, he's making a name, he's running the Allgemeiner, was there ever competitiveness you felt, let me just ask the question, between your husband and his children in their name and persona? And secondly, and this is an even more sensitive question that I would love to hear you, did you ever see and notice competitiveness among your children? You have a lot of children who are all in the public light. They're all earning a living because they're writing books and speaking and people love their words. How do you make sure that your kids don't end up chewing each other's heads off?
I didn't have to make sure because they were, again, involved in exactly the same thing. My husband...
You don't think there was ever jealousy between your kids in terms of who's the best, who remembers the best? You didn't see that?
I didn't see that. Did you see that?
Well, we'll get to...
Okay, let me finish.
Yeah.
First one was my husband.
I want to hear your perspective.
Yeah.
One second. My husband had also his own world, and he was big in his world.
Huge, the Allgemeiner.
That's what I'm saying. He was a great journalist.
Yeah.
So he had his own...
This whole setup is my way of trying to get into the Allgemeiner 100 influential
He
Jews
had
category.
his own sphere of influence.
those?
Yeah, his sphere of influence.
Yeah.
So this was just another prize that was coming into his...
he had a sense of pride from his kids.
Exactly. There was no competitor because he had his own outlet. And this was just another, totally different. But because my husband also wrote about what the Rebbe
and had his own relationship with the Rebbe.
Yeah. And he wrote about what the Rebbe... First of all, my husband had this uncanny...
sense.
What is it?
Sense.
That when he heard the Rebbe speaking, he heard news. By him, it was the latest news was happening by the Rebbe, because the Rebbe would hint at things.
He's always reacting to the world.
And he would catch what the Rebbe wants. And he would immediately, the next day, it was written up in the newspaper. So he was so involved with that himself, but in a different way, that there would be no competitiveness at all. And I think also my other children, they were proud of each other. They were very proud that he was the main scribe for the Rebbe. Are you kidding?
No, the reason why I come from a family too. We're all precocious in different ways, but especially in families, sibling rivalries, competitiveness. Even with a parent, I grew up in the shadow of my father. My father was larger than life. He was an oncologist to all the Rebbes and all the important people and all the everything. And anytime I would introduce myself, Bashevkin, they'd hear my last name and they would say, "Oh, your father's a malach. That's what he's an angel, is everything." And now it's role reversals. My father's retired. I'm still in the public square, and he hears from me. But I remember as a kid, I guess when you look at a parent, it could feel overwhelming. It could feel like too much. So I'm curious for you, from the eyes of you growing up, up.
I'll
your relationship to your father and the other siblings.
Absolutely. So this may be a little different than my mother's perspective, which is
Okay.
fine. My mother sees only the
Sure.
beauty in all her children. So firstly, let's talk about my father first. And I think it's a good way to contextualize it. And this, I think my mother would agree. And I don't put words in your mouth, but you have to remember, for a Chabad parent, a healthy parent, and I'll just quote a story. I remember when we were students in yeshiva, and some of my friends, my classmates, were going off to other yeshivas. Because Chabad, they exchanged.
Sure.
Like, there was a yeshiva in Miami, in Los Angeles, in Seattle, Cincinnati. And the Rebbe met the parents and their children who were going off. And the Rebbe gave everybody, I think, $1 or maybe a kuntras or something, a booklet. And the Rebbe said to the parents, "Thank you for bringing your children till here, and I take that upon my shoulders from here on." And all those parents came out beaming. They didn't see the Rebbe as a competition to them. They felt they were a success story. Here, they like basically they trained the soldiers, and the Rebbe is ready to take them into his army. So, though my mother didn't put it that way, I think so. There was never that question you asked initially. Didn't you feel that your son is being like
Taken away.
away? Again, I'm sure you concur with what I'm saying.
You're explaining it very well.
Yeah, so it was actually seen as a success story because no one saw the Rebbe as a competition to me. If the Rebbe is ready to say that my children can be part of his bigger
ultimate
vision,
arrival.
that's like bringing people to Moshe Rabbeinu and to Hashem. And I
Being
did
drafted onto
I did a
the-
good job. So people saw that as with tremendous pride.
Yeah.
It was like the biggest thing is, even though, of course, there's a tinge. Let's say a shliach goes out to Australia. So, of course, mother and father want him to be close to them. But so you get over that discomfort for the bigger cause. My child is going out and creating a Kiddush Hashem, changing the world.